Hey, everybody. Welcome to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. I'm Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you today as we commemorate the Selma to Montgomery March, as we talk about the American Rescue Plan that was passed last night, really yesterday. And what does all of that mean? 17 million fewer people will be getting relief. But there's some good stuff in that as well. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that with, of course, with Reverend Jesse Jackson. We want you to continue to answer the Twitter poll question. President Biden's $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan passed along partisan lines, 50 to 49. Should Democrats allow Republicans to push their 2020 campaign promises to the right, and moderate Democrats for that matter? So we want to hear from you. Please go to @RevJJackson, @RevJJackson. 19% of you said yes. An overwhelming 81% of you said no. No. The Democrats who are moderate and the Republicans should not be allowed to derail the promises made by the Biden-Harris campaign. So we want you to go to @RevJJackson and continue to vote. Democrats stayed unified, but they nearly lost. Conservative Democrat and the whole legislative package to conservative Democrat Joe Manchin, the former governor of West Virginia, the senior senator from West Virginia, as he supported a Republican amendment on unemployment benefits, holding up Senate negotiations for 12 hours. After days of wrangling over last-minute changes to the bill, the United States Senate passed the relief bill midday. After reading all 628 pages of that, that's what the Republicans made happen. It was along party lines. President Biden wanted bipartisan support. That just did not happen. The bill includes $1,400 relief checks to millions of Americans and extends expanded unemployment until September 6th and doles out billions of dollars toward vaccination, testing, state and local governments, schools, and businesses. But much of the back and forth in recent days has been over the small changes. Well, not so small. $15 an hour raising of the minimum wage. Just how much relief people are going to get? Would it be $400 enhanced unemployment benefits or just $300? Well, they bumped that down from $400 to $300. Well, it was $600 last summer. Then it went down to $400. Now it's down at $300. And in fact, 17 million fewer Americans, 12 million adults, and nearly 5 million children will not get this relief check. Although it is worth noting that this bill has expanded check eligibility for adult dependents, such as college students and those with disabilities. There's a whole lot to talk about today. You were going to be able to get some relief between $100,000 and $200,000 a year if you made up to $100,000. That was bumped down to $75,000. Couples filing together, if you made $200,000, you were going to be able to get some relief. Now that's down to $150,000. A lot of people who make six-figure incomes or close to that are struggling as well with all kinds of bills. So we want to know, 1-866-594-HOPE, 1-866-594-4673. What do you think about all this? What do you think about it? And of course, the Selma to Montgomery March. Everybody is down there. Reverend Jackson is in Chicago, but I know his heart is there. National spokesman for Rainbow Push, Jonathan Jackson, is there representing you. Reverend Jackson, how are you today? It's great hearing your voice. You sound great.
yet again found wanting, and that's my real concern.
So what do you think, everybody? Call us at 1-866-594-HOPE, 1-866-594-4673. Pardon me, I didn't plug it in so you all could hear that we are talking. We, of course, are saluting those who have gathered in Selma to commemorate the Selma to Montgomery March from 1965, which gave way to voting rights in the United States, and so much the voting rights, the foundation of all of our rights. But we're talking today about the American Rescue Plan, $1.9 trillion relief plan put forth by the Biden-Harris administration that started off one way in the House, ended up another way in the U.S. Senate, and now it's got to go back to the House. And progressives are not happy with the changes that have been made in the Senate. $15 an hour, $15 an hour federal minimum wage hike, that was stripped out. 17 million fewer people will receive relief. That has been changed because the people who are going to have access to the money, that pathway was narrowed. At first, it was $100,000. People who make $100,000, believe it or not, they can be struggling too with a lot of bills, medical bills, with student loans, all of that. Well, that's been bumped down to $75,000. And what about those and those who made $200,000 as couples? Well, that's been bumped down to $150,000. And Joe Manchin, the West Virginia senator, who is very conservative, former governor from West Virginia. Well, it turns out he held up the passage of this bill, the voting of this bill for 12 hours. Wow. So what do you think about all that? We want to hear from you. 1-866-594-HOPE, 1-866-594-4673. Got a tremendous panel. We're streaming live here on the Reverend Jesse Jackson Senior page, on the Santita Jackson page, and of course on Twitter. And so we want to hear from you. What do you think? Are you happy with this bill? And how do you think this is going to impact you in the short term in 2022 and 2024? Back with more of Keep Up Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. I'm Santita Jackson. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Everybody's going to wait to hear you. Stay right in that pocket, please. Okay, let me see who we have up here with us.
I couldn't reach out to Attorney yet.
Okay, no worries. We have Dr. Malveaux, we have Attorney Hoffler, and we have Reverend Frank Watkins. Dr. Malveaux? Dr. Malveaux?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I'm here. Good morning.
No worries. He just hadn't turned you up. That's all right.
Okay. Reverend, good morning. You sound fantastic.
Thank you, darling. Thank you.
Yeah, great.
You know,
Okay.
Reverend Yuri's up.
Okay, fantastic. Hello, Reverend Yuri?
good morning.
Fantastic. Reverend?
Yes.
We're going to lead with Dr. Malveaux. And of course, you should congratulate her on her new radio show on WPFW in Washington, D.C., okay?
My.
Okay, fantastic. So I will cue you up for all of that. Hey, everybody, and let me say hello to Jarvis. All of our people are tuning in. Jewel, Carol out there on the left coast. My girl, Deborah Thomas, all the people. Bonita, how you doing? Daryl, Deborah Thomas, Twyla, and let me see, John Cunningham. How are you, Luciana? How are you? Well, Luciana, you know what it is taxed? Your unemployment benefits. Can you believe it? Oh, and let me see, Eddie James Royal. How are you? And they're saying everybody's glad that you're better. Reverend, he's getting stronger every day. Just has to continue on with his therapy. Yes. Mark Anthony, how you doing? Dawn, I already said hello to you, Jarvis, but I can only say hello again. And D. Ray, how you doing? Vicky. So everyone, please. Tom Rogers, how you doing?
Santita,
Yes, Reverend.
the bullet point that
shared about the categories of divisions in drill. Share them and get them to me quickly today.
Okay.
70 million fewer people and blah, blah, blah. So about $10,000 for student debt relief.
Okay. I'll send it to whom? Who's with you?
Bruce.
Do I ever send anything to Bruce's email?
Do I have that? Then get it to
Okay, now Dad, slow down now. Practice.
yeah. Bruce.
Is Shelley there?
No. What is your email, Bruce?
Oh no, tell Bruce to no. Have him text me. We're on Facebook Live.
Check, Santita.
And then if he would just download it for you. Okay? Okay, fantastic. And Reginald is saying hello, as is Earl Smith. So everybody like and share. Oh, was there someone? Oh, okay. No worries.
Thinking about adapters.
Oh, whoa. Okay. Dad, have you had breakfast?
No.
Okay. You gonna wait for me? You don't have to.
Yeah, I will.
You don't have to. No, go on and eat your breakfast. Don't wait. I'll be there just about 9:30, 9:45. So go on and eat. Okay. Did he send this to me? Okay. Tell him I'm tell him I'm about to send it to him right now. Strange fruit. They do. Southern leaves do bear strange fruit. To all of our brothers and sisters down there in Selma, Alabama today, who, the little town that completely changed the world, we send them so much love today. And we thank God for Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and Reverend James Bevel and Diane Nash Bevel. This will be the first commemoration without John Lewis. I don't remember when. My father has not been down there, but boy, oh boy, what these people have done. Diane Nash Bevel and Reverend, how can we ever forget C.T. Vivian and Reverend Ralph Abernathy and Fred Shuttlesworth and all of these people who I've had the privilege to know. We've got with us today Reverend Frank Watkins. Attorney Robert Patillo will be joining us shortly. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, president of the National Bar Association, who is also the chair of the board of Rainbow Push. Of course, Robert Patillo is the Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push. He has a show on WAOK this afternoon from 1 to 4. C.K. Hoffler has a show on WAOK on Tuesdays at 11 o'clock Central Eastern Standard Time. So we urge you to listen to their shows if you want the great legal advice, the great interpretation of the social issues. They will give them to you. And of course, we have got Reverend Dr. Todd Urey, Esquire, Senior Vice President of Rainbow Push and Senior Pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church in Baltimore, Maryland, iconic church. Later on, Aaron Connolly, Covenant Strategies, brilliant political strategist she is. And of course, Reverend Jackson's Communications Director and right-hand man for more than 50 years, Frank Watkins, the co-author of the book with Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., A More Perfect Union, Advancing Your American Rights. And of course, Reverend, as we talk about this American Rescue Plan, we bring up your dear friend and ours, brilliant economist, president emeritus of Bennett College for Women, who has a radio show herself. All right, I love it. WPFW 89.3 out of DC. Malvo! Exclamation point. Don't be fooled. It's International Women's Day. And of course, she will be commemorating that, celebrating that with another Rainbow Push alum. Of course, attorney Janice Mathis, head of the National Council of Negro Women. So, Reverend Jackson, you take it away. Let's start with Dr. Malvo, though, Reverend. Dr. Malvo, why don't you give us an overview of what happened? What's in this package?
Well, good morning, Santita and Brad and colleagues. Basically, Republicans fought this as hard as they could, and Manchin of West Virginia is turning out to be a pivotal Dino, Democrat in name only. He was one of the ones who argued down the $400 a week unemployment benefit to $300. Democrats went along with it because it seemed to be the only way that this bill was going to pass. The last week in terms of Congress has been shenanigans, and more shenanigans. First, you had the entire 600-page bill read on the floor of Congress. That took 10 hours, more than 10 hours. So the clerks were there, standing, throats parched, reading this thing by the demand of Senator Johnson of Wisconsin. Then there was a lengthy delay to go back and forth on various provisions. Of course, as you mentioned earlier, the minimum wage provision is gone, thanks to the parliamentarian. Now, Vice President Harris could have overruled the parliamentarian, but she chose, or the White House chose, she did, the White House chose not to. What remains, however, is a robust bill with lots of anti-poverty provisions. Expanded food assistance, assistance for schools, assistance for COVID injections, money for cities and states. All of those things are really quite significant. I mean, in addition, we're looking at restaurants, the hospitality industry getting some breaks, which, as you know, the hospitality industry has taken a big dunk. And what we know about that industry is that disproportionately, people of color, especially women of color, are employed in that industry as servers, especially, not as chefs, but as servers. And so some of them will get some relief. The guild cost may be whittled down a little bit to 1.3 trillion, 1.8 trillion. I'm sorry, 1.9 trillion to 1.8 trillion. It may have been whittled down just a bit. The other thing that's been whittled down are the checks. People should get $1,400 checks, but the limit on who gets those checks is capped at a household income of about $150,000 and an individual income of $75,000. As you pointed out earlier, you can be poor and make $100,000. You can be poor and have a household income of $150,000 if you live in New York City, if you live in Chicago, if you live in Washington, D.C., where your one-bedroom apartment rent may hover on $2,500 a month. So people toward the up, not the up, but toward the up, basically need relief also, and that's been denied again by Joe Manchin, who basically has been throwing cold water on the Democratic effect. Mm-hmm. Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader Schumer, praised the bipartisan effort here. But as he praises the bipartisan effort, he shares a disappointment about the minimum wage, about the level of the check, and about some of the other things that Congress is still fighting about. Now, what happens next is that the bill that's been marked up a bit goes back to the House of Representatives, where they can vote it up or down. And I believe that they probably will vote it up. I think that Democrats in particular are passionate about people getting relief. Unemployment benefits run out on March 14th, that's next week. So unless something passes, people who have unemployment relief now won't have it. So the likelihood that House of Representatives passes it is very high, but it still leaves some big holes in the Biden-Harris promises, especially around the minimum wage.
Sure.
And so that's where I think the Democrats have to make it their next best priority. And kudos to Senator Bernie Sanders for attempting to reintroduce that amendment, even though he knew it wasn't going to pass. But the point is that we all know that people who make $7.25 an hour are making $15,000 a year, which is not enough money to raise yourself, much less children.
Sure,
Even
sure.
if two people are working at that level in a two-income household, that's $30,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Still not enough money.
Absolutely.
And then if we take it to the next level, we're also talking, Santita, I think it's important for people to understand, we're not going from $7.25 to $15 overnight. What we're doing is basically going in 5 steps. The first step would be to go to $9.25. And that's just a 30% increase. The next several steps would take us to 15 by the year 2025.
Sure.
You know,
when many people in your space are calling for $24, I mean, like right now. Let me get Reverend Frank Watkins in on this. What do you see? Because you have been in Washington, you have worked on the Hill for years and years and years. What happened?
Well, the major part of the $1.9 billion bill passed, and has been said, it's likely to pass on Tuesday, the Democrats in the Senate, because Democrats don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good. So they will continue to fight for raising the minimum wage, to fight for student loan debt forgiveness, and all the other issues that were not dealt with in this particular bill at this particular time. We should celebrate that which was passed, and we should continue to fight for that which is still needed. I don't think it bodes well for the future, however. There are a lot of things coming up in the future that the moderates, Democratic moderates, may not be on board for, and they're going to be facing the filibuster, because not everything can be only certain bills pertaining to the budget can be passed using the budget reconciliation process, which allows a 50+1 vote as opposed to the filibuster of 60. The problem with the filibuster is they don't even have enough votes among Democrats to eliminate the filibuster with 50+1. Christian Semina and Joe Manchin have both indicated they're absolutely against eliminating the filibuster. So the issues of immigration, the issues of infrastructure investment, emphasis on racial reconciliation process and bills that may come forward, voting rights, H.R. 1, H.R. 4, which H.R. 4 would restore the Voting Rights Act of 1964 by creating a new formula for Section 4. All of these things are in jeopardy because of the filibuster. So we should celebrate what happened yesterday and what's likely to happen on Tuesday, and with the president signing it. But the road ahead seems more difficult.
Reverend Jackson?
I'm concerned now that we have a situation, Santita, where the poor are pulling the load to determine the victory, yet still asked to sacrifice yet again. You should be working out of poverty. And the working poor cannot work out of poverty. I mean, transportation costs. Some people in Chicago change trolleys and buses 3 times a day on both ways, for example. Mm-hmm. Even if you had, if everybody got $6 an hour, and I mean got it right now, the poor would still pay more. More food deserts, more health deserts, and the like. So we must also fight for structural change, and that would be our thrust in the coming months.
We only have a couple more minutes before we go to break. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, what do you see?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Santita. Good morning, Reverend Jackson, and everyone on this great panel. I mean, I think, Dr. Malveaux outlined, sort of the high point of this $1.9 trillion measure. And I think it is disappointing that the minimum wage provision was left out or was not able to be included. But I do think that there are some other things in this bill that are going to be helpful to people who need help the most. So I was shocked initially when we heard the president announce that he didn't think that the minimum wage provision was going to survive, because that was a key campaign promise that they made. But I don't think it's over yet. I just think it could not go through in the stimulus package. So I'm optimistic for the future. I think that there is, help is underway. People are really, in all of our communities, are suffering so much that the stimulus bill will go a long way in helping those that are suffering. The fact that at the middle class and the middle class level, you see that there is a change. And so there's not going to be the kind of assistance for some, middle class folks that do need help as well. I think that was kind of to be expected, but the key is for the least of these, those that are suffering most in this country, there is going to be some relief, some form of relief, and I think it's going to go a long way in helping us to get back on our feet, especially as we anticipate that hopefully this pandemic, this COVID pandemic, will get better. That we will see, hopefully, that most Americans who want to be vaccinated can be vaccinated by the middle of the year. I know the president said, May, but I'm just saying by the middle of the year. And I think that that's going to be part of the solution for this country to getting us back on track. So I'm cautiously optimistic, grateful for some of the measures that will help a lot of people suffering in this country, disappointed that the minimum wage $15 hour was not passed, because actually $15 an hour is not that much in the scheme of the bills that, if we compare it to the bills that most people have, but this is at least something and a step in the right direction for sure.
Reverend Dr. Uri, I've got 2 minutes before break. What do you see?
Well, good morning, Santita, and to Reverend Jackson and all of the guests. As Dr. Malveaux has laid out the economic benefit, raising children out of poverty, that's a principled position. I think we often focus on the difference between $400 a week and $300 a week, but if we started net zero with unemployment benefits about to expire in 7 days, we have to start with a different perspective on what we've accomplished without assuming that we've achieved everything that was part of our objective. So that's one. The other thing is reconciliation can be used once in a fiscal year. And so we need to start looking at October 1 of the next 2 years to anticipate what we would want to see accomplished through the budget reconciliation process if there is going to be the kind of obstructionism and the gamesmanship even from within the moderate wing of the Democratic Party, so that the key agenda doesn't get held up. But to Reverend Frank Watkins' point, H.R. 1, H.R. 4, H.R. 40, all of those key fundamental transformative civil rights bills are going to be held up by a process that's going to require them to take a look at something other than the filibuster. I think $15 an hour for many of the workers, if you're going to do infrastructure, the president has already signed the executive order requiring $15 an hour for certain government jobs. If there's going to be federal government employment tied to the infrastructure bill that allows folks to be able to be gainfully employed in the process of rebuilding bridges and roads and the like, or if states are going to access the dollars, you attach a $15 minimum wage requirement to being able to access the funds. I think you'll begin to kind of see multiple ways to get to the same objective, but we just have to be very strategic throughout.
We'll be back with more of Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson in just a couple of minutes. Call me at 1-866-594-HOPE. Reverend Jesse Jackson right here in the house. Okay, Reverend?
Yes.
I can hear something going on in the background.
Oh, yes. No more than yes.
That's
Okay, something, whoever has something going on in the background, it's very, very loud on the air, okay? So please, let's not have anything. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Reverend Jackson is joining us by telephone, and we've got attorney C.K. Hoffler, president of the National Bar Association. Of course, she hosts her own radio show on WAOK, the iconic Black Talk radio station out of Atlanta, every Tuesday at 11 Eastern Standard Time. She's talking about the law. If you want your legal questions answered, I don't care where you're from, call her down there on Tuesdays. Call us here at 1 594 HOPE, 1 594 4673. We're about to have the anniversary edition of A More Perfect Union, Advancing New American Rights. This was a great book co-written by Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. and our guest today, well, really part of the regular panel, Reverend Frank Watkins, Reverend Jackson's communications director of more than 50 years. And of course, we have got Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary, Douglas Memorial Community Church in Baltimore, an iconic, one of our iconic churches. Indeed, he is from Rainbow Push as well. And of course, we've got Dr. Julianne Malveaux, head of Push Excel, and she is the president emeritus of the Bennett College for Women. She has her own radio show, yay, on WPFW in Washington, D.C. Tomorrow, they will be talking about Women's Day, International Women's Day. In fact, this is Women's History Month, and so we cannot wait to hear that wonderful conversation. What time does it come on, Dr. Malveaux?
9 a.m. Eastern.
Okay, and then go to WPFW.org so that you can stream it from any place in the world. And it's Malveaux, exclamation point, as if you didn't know already. You know, Reverend Frank Watkins, Reverend Jackson, was making a point off air, and you wanted him to make it on air. Frank Watkins?
Yeah, some of the guests have mentioned the child tax credit. I think that needs to be lifted up in a big way. The interesting thing about it, you know, the unemployment compensation of $300 and the $1,400 per person, those are temporary. Those are one-time things. The child tax credit is a permanent part of the law, and will raise 50% of children that are currently in poverty. It will raise 50% of them out of poverty. It allows for up to $4,000 per child. Well, for one child, and up to $8,000 for two or more children. That will go a long, long way. And like I say, it's permanent. It's a permanent part of the law. It's not temporary as some of the other aspects of the law are.
Reverend Jackson, I think we.
I
Yes,
think
Reverend.
with big 1.9 trillion. But when students who played a big role in this campaign, $10,000 and $100,000 debt, that doesn't fit well with me. Not having $10,000, you're working poor. The working poor. We have to change that. The working poor campaign.
Well, you know what? Let's.
The
Yes,
forgiveness of
Reverend.
the loan was not part of this. They took that out of the bill. So that's going to be a separate issue. Elizabeth Warren is advocating for $50,000, and Biden has talked about $10,000. So that's going to be a struggle there as well.
You know,
And you need to know that the group of people who holds the greatest student loan debt is Black women. Black men behind them, and then, of course, other ethnicities behind. But Black women hold the greatest amount of student loan debt. Black women got President Biden over the hump, and it's almost a slap in the face to say that they wouldn't get the student loan relief. Now, there are those like the Mansions of the world who say, why should a carpenter pay for someone to get a Harvard degree? But here's the deal. You can sliding scale that, too. You get this forgiveness if your family earned less than X, and X could be whatever. But to just say $10,000, that's like, again, it's the pragmatic Joe Biden that many of us were uneasy about during the election.
You know, Reverend, we've got a call from Jerusalem. Tom Rogers, how you doing, Tom? Calling from Jerusalem.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me okay? Or
We can hear you. It's great. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Well, thank you to Reverend Jackson. I was a delegate for him in the 14th District in '88. I apologize that we did not work for you harder, or we wouldn't be in this mess. Okay. What I really think, I keep going back to A.P. Randolph, but I really, really think that after the shenanigans that are going on in the Senate, I really think that people have to get serious about it and just. It's a matter taken to the street. When they talk about the Senate parliamentarian, I had to scratch my head. It's like, what is this? That the dog ate the legislation, and then I realized that 1927, yes, this was there, but Nelson Rockefeller overruled the Senate parliamentarian. So basically, Joe Biden is a Vichy Democrat who's just, for class interests, cooperating with the fascists that are in the Senate, and you have them within the Democratic Party. I'm sorry, but don't be. It's now out in the open. That's just what I'm saying. I think it needs to go to the streets. It's not a parliamentary question anymore.
Tom,
that's just my 2 cents.
Tom, let me ask you this before you go.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for calling from over in Jerusalem. We hope that you are safe and well. What do you think? Thank you, and your family too. What should you say take to the streets? You're saying that people need to protest. Are you disappointed in what you see?
Well, definitely. You need a progressive party in America that's going to hold, President HBNA Bank feet to the fire. I mean, that's what they called him when he was a senator. Senator credit card. I mean, you know where he's coming from, and I hate to be crass about it, but I only have 2 middle fingers right now. There's only 2 political parties. You have to have a bigger selection, like they do in Europe. It's not winner take all. This isn't red versus blue. Okay, this is a proportional thing, and then you can start bringing up not only these issues but the defense spending, everything. You have to have an offensive attitude. Anyway, it's power. It is. You mentioned that the other day. It's grabbing power. That's exactly what it's about.
Tom,
that's just my 2 cents.
No, that's not 2 cents. And you're calling all the way from Jerusalem. We want to thank you so much for tuning in.
No. I have a U.S. line. No
Well,
cost at all.
well, I'm just
Extra.
glad that you're here. So glad that you're here. Reverend Jackson, why don't you
Yeah,
speak to
I want to tell
Tom?
people are looking at the downward trend of the death and maybe opening up prematurely. Because even if you get sick and don't die, you can be so damaged, it's almost as if you were living dead. Do not open up prematurely. Keep your mask on and your distancing and sanitize hands. That's a very important part thing to me.
Well, also get some money into hands because, Reverend, even if people are vaccinated or if they choose not to be vaccinated and they are therapeutic, they take the therapeutics. The fact is, you still have to pay for the treatment. Getting treated for COVID-19 is not
Black Lives
free.
Matter protest. Some of the young people voted this time.
Mm-hmm.
$100,000 debt, $10,000 down payment. And then the poor, the black and poor South Carolina made them deal possible. So we must stand with them.
Okay.
Our character emerges by how we treat the least of these, not how we get along, how we treat the least of these. And they've cut out the deal.
Oh, Reverend Uri, what is your response to that? Thank you, Tom.
Well, taking it to the streets takes different forms, right? First place is when members of Congress and senators come back to their districts, there ought to be convenings at their offices. There ought to be calls for public gatherings to hear what's been going on. When we get back to public gatherings, they can be virtual in the meantime. I think we have conditioned ourselves to consider only marching as public dissent. Where they don't expect you to show up is at the meeting place. They don't want you to come to the room where it happens. And so now the response has been to treat marches like they're walks for exercise. And as long as there's no disruption to the regular order of business when it's time to have the meeting, then of course, nothing really changes. So I think we have to be holistic in our approach. Yes, we have to protest in the street, but protest and be informed about what's missing so that when they start asking for constituent feedback, you give it. When they start having public discussions about it, you're a part of it on the record so that when they go back to Washington, by the way, in this environment, use the benefit. They all have Twitter feeds, Facebook pages, and they have email. If you start tweeting them and start tagging them, they'll start tracking because I promise you, every one of them has somebody in their office monitoring social media to see what the people are saying.
That's true. But, I tell you, the Selma to Montgomery March is what moved the needle on voting rights acts. I mean, I think it's important to be, I'm in agreement with you. I'm just saying it's important for everybody to be everywhere all at the same time. Because when you see people in the streets, the politicians react. When you call them, they react. When you send an email, they react. They have a calculation. That's why there was a lot of stuff that moved this summer because they saw people in the streets. And that is very unnerving to politicians. They don't want to see you in their office. That's unsettling to them.
That's
right?
exactly right. That's exactly right. And even with the marches in the streets, let's remember what we're talking about is that we had a low threshold for student loan debt forgiveness. And they pulled out the $15 minimum wage. And all I'm saying is, and to your point, I'm not saying don't come out of the street. I'm just saying don't leave it solely the street because that's going to allow them to game the system. And we've got to make sure that we have presence outside the door and inside the room where it happens.
At the same time.
Well, no, and Santita,
Yes.
I agree. I would just add, there were 7 Democrats that took an adverse position to the minimum wage increase. So that's where we need to start. That's what we need. You talk about because that they broke rank. I can't imagine a scenario if the tables were turned and the Republicans were advocates of this, that there would have been 7 Republicans to break rank on something this important. So I just think that it's unfortunate, but now we know who the Democrats are who feel a certain way about that. And their constituents need to bombard their phone lines, their offices, do all the things they need to do with letters when I say bombard the letters. Because that's important. This is going to come up again, and it's very important to get them back on track and for the constituents to let them understand that they are not happy with how they broke rank.
Reverend Jackson.
This year, be clear that today's Republicans are yesterday's Southern Jefferson Democrats.
Wait a
Today's
minute, what?
Today's Republicans are yesterday's Democrats, Jefferson Davis Democrats. Trying to stop the right to vote in the first place. Trying to stop access to development in the real sense. So be careful on a guy like Manchin. He represents the old South.
But Reverend, do you even have to go back 60 years? I mean, what about the Blue Dogs? Because that's who we're looking at. I think we're looking at Sam Nunn, Chuck Robb. I mean, from the 80s. We don't have to go back that far. We can go back to when you were running for president, a generation ago.
Well, we can be modern. Actually, it was 8 Democrats that voted against the minimum wage. 2 of them were from Delaware, Senator Coons and Senator Carper. 2 were from New Hampshire, Senator Hassan, Senator Sheehan. We're putting all the focus on West Virginia with Manchin, but there was also, in addition to what those I mentioned, Arizona with Senator Sinema, Senator King from Maine, and Senator Tester from Montana. Those were the 8 people who voted against the minimum wage, and 2 of them were from Biden's home state of Delaware. And to emphasize Dr. Position on the black women being, in the student debt and so forth, I think I remember Biden saying something about black people had his back and he was going to have theirs. I think I remember him saying that somewhere along the way.
Well, in South Carolina, and
so
when
he
was
needs to be reminded of that.
And how do you remind him? What's the best way, or what are the ways in which you remind him now?
Reverend Todd's point is that strategic. After all, the basketball. I mean, we're glad he beat Trump. Having said that, there's a lot more work to do. That's the point.
Well, I guess all I'm saying to you is I'm not butting up against Reverend Urey. I think we're on the same page. I think, though, it is very important to do all of that, because one of the things, having grown up in the civil rights movement, you marched because you were informed. And what you did, the great model of Operation Breadbasket and Operation Push and Rainbow Push, was that you were training throughout the week. The only reason you went out to march, it's uncomfortable for people to march. People don't want to do that. People want to go home, or they want to go out to the club or go out to lunch or dinner and just live a comfortable life. But when people are uncomfortable, they get out in the streets, but you have to inform them, right?
And and Santita, if I might right there, let me give you kind of a couple of examples, because there's the marching that Reverend does, but having traveled with Reverend, let me tell you where he is often most feared. At the annual shareholders meeting for corporations, when he's going in to meet with the boards of directors and the CEOs. That's not necessarily in the streets, but I promise you, there are folks holding their breath, wondering what he is going to say, because he's going to step up to the mic and have something to say.
But you know why they also fear him there? Because they are afraid he is also going to march on their firm. I'm saying it's a both and, because when they've seen the people that he can galvanize. Yes, I am.
No, it's an absolute both and. But the other piece of this, when you ask about influencing Biden, I think that Frank Watkins has made a good point about the 2 Delaware senators who voted against. Those 2 Delaware senators are the people that Biden has the most influence over. People kept talking about him working the phone. Was he working the phone with his own people? I mean, Coons has been all over the media saying that he's representing Biden. Carper less so. But so these are the 2 senators you would expect him basically to have the most influence over. Apparently he doesn't, and or he didn't care enough, and or he didn't push hard enough. So this is some place where we need to push him. How come your boys didn't stand up for you?
Todd Urey, got a minute before we go to break.
I would say, and we can continue this part of the discussion, if we do a state by state, let's take the minimum wage, for example. Some of the senators who are Democratic senators from states are in states that would be impacted by raising that minimum wage. I think we have to bear in mind that these are also senators. We've got to look at who's next in the rotation, what's their self-interest, what is the state current minimum wage, because raising the federal minimum wage only matters if the state minimum wage is lagging behind. Some of the states are ahead, Some of the states are still sitting at $7.25. Georgia pays $7.25 because its state minimum wage is $5.15 an hour. And so we've got to look at what the impact is and be very tactical about who we focus on to begin to apply the necessary pressure to get what's going to benefit everybody.
Well, with increased Democratic comfort zone, I mean, Warnock is running for Senate in 2022. Senator Warnock is up in 2 years.
In a year and a half.
The tough seat to hold on to.
A year and a half. It's not even 2 years. He's running right now. He's running right now. And you need all hands on deck, and every option needs to be on the table to let people know how you feel and what you believe and what it is that you need. You have who you want, now get what you need. In politics, the reverse ought to be true. You need to get what you need before you get who you want. Well, okay, now we got who we want. Now get what you need. How are you going to do that? How are you going to get your $15 an hour and then get 24 and then an hour? How are you going to get more of that? How are we going to get more help for more people? Americans are struggling, even when they make $100,000 a year. They're struggling. And this should not be. More of Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. We need your support at Rainbow Push. Please go to rainbowpush.org and contribute. Become a member. Call us at 773-FREEDOM throughout the week. And please become a member. We have been passing out food, Pampers. We have been active throughout this whole pandemic. We need you. We need you as we try to help you. Help push before you need help from push. More of Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson in just a few minutes.
Everybody, all right. You all can talk on Facebook Live right now. Excuse me.
You know, Santita, one thing too, in addition to the looking at these seven, Democratic senators, and I stand corrected, I thought it was seven.
It's 8.
The fact that 2 of them were from Delaware, just as everyone has said, that's really significant because it's funky. It's embarrassing. It should have been embarrassing for the president. But let's talk about a senator from Arizona. What Arizona is going to need, they're going to need the full backing of the administration and everyone else because of the voter suppression laws that are being passed in Arizona. Mm-hmm. They're going to need a full court press in a lot of states. And so it seems to me as though some of the political discussions, and yes, we're not at the table, so we don't know what discussions they had, just didn't take place with some of these, to have 8 senators and key states that really, really need the full force of the Democratic Party to help them with their own issues at home, not to mention 2 senators from the state of Delaware. It just seemed like there was something that was missing. And maybe when they were trying to persuade them to vote otherwise, but somehow the arguments didn't resonate. And that's funky. That's unfortunate. And that sends a message about how much more work the Biden-Harris administration has to do with its own people.
And there's a very high percentage of African-American people that live in Delaware.
Yeah,
like somewhere 28% or something like that.
But this seems by definition, typically the president doesn't have to worry about his home state. I mean, it just seems by definition, if that were a priority, if the president announced that was a priority, he wanted to see that happen, then it seems to me as though his I hate to say his homeboys, but his state senators would have said, that would have been a no-brainer under other circumstances.
But when you're saying that, as he did in a meeting with America's governors, that, unfortunately, I don't think that the $15 an hour is going to get through. So that's something that's going to be off the table. That's not helping.
It's not helping. And so now inquiring minds want to know, because when your own folks don't vote in favor of it, when it's clearly in their best interest to do so based on their constituents, it begs the question, what was his commitment to that? I just think that's something that they need to clean up, because the same type of, this is the most important, he picked as his primary act something that was most important to the American people and to what they wanted to push forward. And so this will tell us the kind of fight that they're going to have down the line. But I guess I certainly didn't expect that many Democratic senators to be opposed in that way, and particularly where they're coming from.
Well, as one of the actions the Democrats should use, the same as what Republicans do. The reason Republicans won't move is they're afraid of the of a Republican primary
2 minutes.
challenge. What about Democratic primary challenge? Does that drive Manchin over into the Republican Party, or does it make him more accountable to Democrats?
Well, I think it's really interesting that, of course, the hard right is cleaving to Trump. Who does the hard left cleave to? I mean, we did primary.
Bernie Sanders. Hold on, Reverend.
Yes.
We're going to have just under 2 minutes when we get back.
Yes.
Okay, so you want to invite everyone. How long are you going to be with us?
So,
Okay, what I need you to do, though, you've got to slow down.
yeah.
You got to slow down. Stay where you were when you answered the phone, Dad. Okay?
Yeah.
No, I'm just telling you.
All right, stand by.
Okay?
I heard you.
Yeah. Well, please, so we can hear you. Hey, everybody. Stay tuned for the second hour of Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. I'm Santita Jackson. Reverend Jackson is with us on the phone. Reverend Jackson.
So today is the day we commemorate the march in Selma, Alabama. Jose Williams and John Lewis and Miss Daisy Boynton to the demonstration. She's the lady who invited Dr. King to Selma at the Dallas County Bowls League. She was a real pillar in that thing. She's a credit, Ms. Boynton, as well as John Lewis and, of course, Jose Williams. Jonathan Jackson represented Rainbow Push today as our national spokesman, so we're glad about that. All of the bill that was passed is a good thing. We have a lot of substance, but we must also deal with how we measure character by how we treat the least of these. The least of these are still wanting. They voted in big numbers, and yet they can't get the minimum wage, can't work their way out of poverty. The students who turn out, the whole campus is voted. They're looking at almost no commitment to student loan debt reduction. So we must keep focusing on what really matters, what's missing, not just what we have.
And Rainbow Push, we need your support, everybody. Please call us at 773-FREEDOM throughout the week, or go to rainbowpush.org and be a part of Rainbow Push. Be a part of Push Excel, of which Dr. Malvo is president. Be a part of Rainbow Push, of which Attorney C.K. Hoffel is chair of the board. Vice President, Reverend Dr. Todd Urey, Esquire. We've got a tremendous bench, tremendous group of people who want to work with you every day. And of course, Reverend Frank Watkins, one of the founders, has been there more than 50 years. What a blessing, what a blessing, what a blessing. So let's talk, everybody. Let's talk about this $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. Have you been rescued? What do you need, and where do we go from here? We're in the midst of a political season. That is, 2022 is right around the corner. Reverend Dr. Raphael Warnock, who's the senator from Georgia, he's up for re-election right now. A lot of people are. So what do you need them to do? Do you need $15 an hour? Do you need more relief? I'm going to talk about it on Keep Hope Alive in just a few minutes.
What we're going to do right here is go back.
Thank you for listening to Keep Hope.
Reverend, I can hear you breathing through your mouth. Okay. All right. So we're going to come up.
One day, when the glory comes.
Hey, everybody. Sunday, March 7th, 2021. As we think about the Selma to Montgomery March, we are in that season. I'm Santita Jackson. This is Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Every Sunday, we've been coming to you now for, 17 years come next month. What a blessing it's been to be with you, and what a blessing it is to continue to be with you. 1-866-594-HOPE, 1-866-594-4673. Let us talk about the American Rescue Package. Wow. Held up for 12 hours by Senator Joe Manchin. Yet we've seen 8 Democrats who pushed against the minimum wage, the raising of the minimum wage to $15 an hour. We've seen 17 million fewer people who will have access to relief. What does all of that mean? It's a $1.9 trillion package. Surely there are a lot of great things in it, but then there are a lot of disappointments and a lot of progressives, a lot of Democrats who are fence sitters, but who decided to vote for the Biden-Harris team anyway. They're expressing their displeasure. So where do we go from here? Do we throw the baby out with the bathwater? Certainly not. But what we do need to do is figure out how we can get what we need while we have who we want. The American Rescue Plan, we want you to call us at 1-866-594-HOPE, 1-866-594-4673. Let's talk about this. After days of wrangling over last-minute changes to the bill, the United States Senate passed a relief bill midday on Saturday after a more than 10-hour read, 628-page read of the bill. That was a tactic employed by Republican senators. And yet you had 8 Democratic senators who joined with Republicans on some key issues. So what about that? Is it just purely partisan politics, or is it patrician politics? Is it corporatist politics at play here? We think so. The bill includes a $1,400 stimulus check to millions of Americans, extends expanded unemployment until September 6th. It would have been $400 last summer. Of course, it was $600. Now it's down. It was negotiated down to $300. We've got a lot to talk about. Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Santita, good morning.
Good morning.
Let me say that before we talk about Selma today and the will and about the bill, Vernon Jordan made his transition free. Vernon Jordan, huge force for civil rights. I remember when Charlie Hunter and Hamilton Holmes went to University of Georgia. Vernon Jordan, working with Constable Baker Martin, led them into Georgia, University of Georgia. Worked at DEP before John Lewis and Truman Ball took it up. He never league to another level, became a premier board member, and took civil rights inside those boardrooms in ways that had never been done before. We owe an awful lot to Vernon Jordan. We thank God for having sent him our way. Vernon Jordan made his transition at 86 years old. God bless him for a long time.
God bless him. God bless him.
Selma, Alabama, we march today, commemorating the March 1965. This year, John Lewis will not be there for the first time ever. We miss John Lewis so much, and we thank God for his work, and Jose Williams, and James Bevel, and James Orange. This whole fighting that was kicked off by really James Orange. He was fighting for a guy, Jackson, who was killed, fighting for a soldier came home, and James Orange took up the fight, and Miss Boynton invited Dr. King, who was the rest of history. Let me also say that today's Selma is the beginning of the new majority in America. Blacks could not vote. White women could not serve on juries. 18-year-olds could not vote. Could vote on campuses. And Native Americans vote. You couldn't vote bilingually. That is the majority of Americans. The lockdown democracy until 1965. So there should be more people marching than just blacks today. Native Americans should be marching. Women should be marching. It's a big, big deal. Now, on this bill, we're glad we got the $1.9 trillion through. The big bill. We also must focus on who was in it and what was not in it. We can talk about that this morning. What was in it? It was benefit. More children lifted out of poverty. Locked out 70 million people. I was in the hospital the last few weeks working on having a surgery and working on learning to walk again. What struck me while in the hospital was 60 million Americans have no health insurance. 60 million. They can't get the kind of care I got last month. And that concerns me very much.
Absolutely. They couldn't get the kind of care you were able to receive, and we're so blessed by the Ryan Center at Northwestern University for giving you the superior care that you got. And so many people who, even after they've been vaccinated, you're still vulnerable to COVID-19. You can still contract it. You can still transmit it. But this medicine will mitigate it. Will mitigate the virus. But even if you get the virus, you still have to pay for the remedy. Do you have the money for that? Most Americans do not. Pre-COVID, most Americans, well, 47%, and that's just what we've been able to measure. We're not even talking about the people on the margins, couldn't afford a $400 emergency trip to the emergency room. They just didn't have it. And so you can imagine where most Americans are today. So we got to talk about this on Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. And I do hope you'll join me on my show, on the Santita Jackson Show on the nation's largest progressive talk radio station and AM 950 radio, as we are going to be monitoring this week, not only this, but what's happening with the George Floyd case. And of course, I'm going to have attorney C.K. Hoffler on to talk about the George Floyd bill that was passed. There's so much work to be done. And we do hope that you'll join us at Rainbow Push as we do the work. RainbowPush.org. We need your support. Please, please, please. We need your support. Freedom is not free. Reverend Jackson has said that over and over again down through the years. And so please go online and join and be a part of the movement. And of course, call us at 773-FREEDOM, 773-FREEDOM. We're open. It's limited, but we are open every day. Giving away food, giving away Pampers, collecting these items so that we can make sure that you're not hungry and that your children are clothed. More of Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson in just a few minutes.
Then when it's all done, we'll cry glory, oh glory, oh glory. We'll cry glory.
Okay, Reverend,
Yes.
you want to say hello to everyone? You all can say hello to everyone on online. And CK, you have to leave you have to leave at 30 after the hour. Yes.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So.
Please tell me this morning. I need to talk to you today.
Okay, I will.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, CK, after we go to everyone, I need you to give me a couple of minutes. After I go to you, Dr. Malvo, can you get Aaron? Oh, do you have Aaron on? Aaron?
Good morning.
Hey, sweetie, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Attorney Aaron Connolly, Covenant Strategies, brilliant political organizer here and in Arizona, all over the country, really. So stay right there because you can tell us about Sister Cinema. Oh my gosh.
Well, I trained with her at a leadership forum, so I'm very familiar with the senator.
Oh my gosh. Oh, glory.
No, it's a house dismiss Charlie not even being black. He declared something. You ain't black on the Supreme Court. He doesn't exist.
Dad.
Yeah.
Slow down.
Yeah. Charlie does not exist. Trump something that doesn't exist.
Dad.
That's what position be in.
Slow down.
Shut up.
Okay. Oh, honey, look, let me tell you something. One thing I've learned about, no, you don't have to say ooh. One of the things that I credit my father and Uncle Saint and people at Frank Watkins, the men I've been surrounded by, I've always been treated with respect. He was joking. He would not do that to me. That's why I would not allow anyone to do that to me as an adult or even growing up. So he and I can laugh and joke, but it doesn't go but so far. That having been said, because he helped me with that. I was about 6 years old, and Uncle Saint had driven me to school, and of course, St. Clair Booker. And we used to line up by grade to go into our school, and we were running late. And because we lived outside of the district, we were always running late, and it was so embarrassing. I was mortified to walk into class late or just walk into class just behind the last person in the classroom. And I was about to bolt out of the car, and Uncle Saint said, "Stop, baby, wait right here." And I was about 6. And he opened the door. He said, "Never, ever open the door when a man has been driving." You always wait for him to come around and open your door. My father's always done that, and the people who've worked for him have always done that. They've always said, wait, your father requires that I open the door for you. So I appreciate that. In the meantime, I want him to be understood. And one of the challenges has been that he thinks 20 times faster than everybody else. And it's frustrating not to be able to get it out. But if you just slow down, it will come out, Daddy. Told you, not 6/8 time, 3/4. 1/2. Just put a couple of beats in that measure. You are all good. Trust me.
Attorney Hoffler, I wanted to clarify something. You were right. It's 7 Democrats, but the king is an independent that caucuses with Democrats. So those are the 8. So technically, you're right.
Okay. Well, you know, I defer. You are the great mastermind, and so I did defer to you on that. But yeah, he's kind of like a Democrat. I was just distraught that, quite frankly, that it sent a political message that Biden's own people did not support that, because then it begs the question: did Biden really support it?
Stand by.
I just want to amplify.
Okay, hold
what
on.
Reverend said about Vernon Jordan.
Okay,
no,
no, you can do that absolutely. Let me just get let me get on standby. Hold on.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. I'm Santita Jackson. Got a tremendous panel with us. Joining us, of course, is Erin Connolly, attorney Erin Connolly, brilliant political organizer and strategist. She's going to be able to talk to us about Senator Sinema and what she thinks about what happened with this American Rescue Plan. Of course, she's joining Dr. Julianne Malveaux, brilliant economist. Of course, she has her own radio show tomorrow morning on WPFW out of Washington, D.C. But you can hear it all over the world. As you heard, we had Tom Rogers calling us from Jerusalem. Go to WPFW.org. You can also go to WAOK. Catch them online. That is where you can catch attorney C.K. Hoffler with great legal advice every Tuesday at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Of course, Dr. Malveau's show is 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right after my show on Chicago's Progressive Talk, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. Reverend Dr. Todd Urey, Esquire, brilliant pastor, theologian, Rainbow Push, and of course, Douglas Memorial Community Church in Baltimore. He's their senior pastor. And we have got, let me see, I think Reverend Frank Watkins. We're about to have, what is it, the 20th anniversary edition of A More Perfect Union, Advancing New American Rights. And that is the book that he co-authored with Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. Whew, I said a mouthful. Reverend Jackson, you just amplified Vernon Jordan. But before you go, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, you want to make a comment about Vernon Jordan and about this bill?
Absolutely. Well, we just celebrate so much today. You know, the march to Selma, we celebrate that and what it means for all of us in this country and indeed in the world. And while we celebrate also, even though there are some significant loopholes in it, we do celebrate the passage of the $1.9 trillion relief package, because it is going to help so many who are in desperate need in this community. But I just wanted to say, just for one moment, take a moment to talk about the great loss of Vernon Jordan to the legal community. It's everybody in this country, certainly. He had an impact nationally, internationally, but in the legal community amongst African-American lawyers, Vernon Jordan showed us how to be a corporate giant and be a social justice engineer at the same time. Never lose sight of that. He was someone who, personally, for me in my journey, having only been in the private sector and had the benefit and the tremendous experience of working with people like Willie Gary and Bob Washington, who are just giants in the industry, but also recognizing the importance of social justice, which informs my dedication to Rainbow Push, to Reverend Jackson, to all of the organizations, no matter what I'm doing on a large scale, corporate scale, or whatever the work that I've done. So we are mourning the loss of a great legal giant who meant so much to Black lawyers in this country and in the world.
Hmm. Reverend Jackson, let's go around this panel. And new to the panel is Erin Connolly. Erin Connolly, please talk to us. What is your takeaway from this American Rescue Plan?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me this morning. It's an honor to be here on Sunday with you. And I think the takeaway for me is finally, first of all, I know that's been said, but the work that still needs to be done following the stimulus for American families that are worried about paying rent. And as you mentioned, we're in a pandemic and most folks are still struggling to afford health care or pay their premiums. This stimulus bill is encouraging to fill a gap in those ACA subsidies and, provide a small window of protection for the next couple of years to fill this, what I call an ACA pothole, where we have some unintended, consequences within that legislation that needs to be improved. So that's a big win. I would have liked to see it go further to include additional health care protections for folks, including families. But it is encouraging that at least people will have cash in their pockets. The troubling thing that, as you mentioned, the senators who voted and fought to, for example, reduce unemployment benefits by $100 a week for folks through September, that's nearly $1,000 out of the pockets of working families who are struggling and who are going to continue to worry about moratoriums being lifted with regards to eviction and what that means for the stability of their families. So it's disappointing to see some of those senators not take those provisions seriously, especially knowing Senator Sinema's background of struggling with homelessness as a young child with her family and how hard she's worked to become a senator in Arizona and go to law school and do all of those things coming out of poverty. I would like to see our folks fight to protect those that are on the edge of homelessness and really struggling during a time where folks are still unemployed. We're still in a pandemic. And while this is a great start, I think we can do more with regards to cash assistance with no strings attached, for example. We've seen more and more studies come out and show that families just need more money. And as we discussed in International Women's Month, how we can help the moms that are left behind in this pandemic, trying to raise children and oftentimes having to leave the workforce. The biggest impact maker is cash without a bunch of hoops to jump through. We've seen evidence of that in places like Jackson, Mississippi and Stockton, California, where we have amazing data to support this. And I hope local governments and county governments can get folks more money after it's clear what the federal government's going to come through with in this assistance. So there is hope, as you say, but I'm troubled at the loss of $100 a week for working families.
Dr. Malveaux?
I like to agree with the attorney, especially around the issues of health care. And let's remember, we're 9 million jobs down from where we were this time last year. We're 9 million fewer jobs out there now than this time last year. So we need to pay attention to that. I mean, many people were so happy on Friday. The unemployment rate dropped out a little bit. 400,000 jobs were created in the last month. At the same time, 400,000 jobs out of 10 million is like a drop in the bucket. And so we're not really paying attention to. So Joe Manchin seems to think that, the economy is on the upswing. Well, it is better than it was last month, but not as good as it was before COVID. And so there has been insufficient attention to those who are unemployed and those who may permanently see their employment prospects basically diminished. And then finally, of course, we must talk about there's money in the COVID relief bill for teachers, and many states have now prioritized teachers in terms of vaccinations. So the education conversation has far from being resolved, and so many of our young people have been sidelined.
Reverend Urey?
Well, to Aaron's point, the issue is what's left, right? what took so long to get us here. But now that we have a version of the bill that we expect the House to just vote up, not try to go into a conference battle between the two chambers, we got to go back and look at what's there. I was just during the break watching Senator Manchin as he's making the rounds, of course, this morning on Sunday Talk. On the minimum wage, somehow or other, he's settled in on this magical, mythical number of $11 an hour as being what the federal minimum wage needs to be. But when you start comparing that, remember, the minimum wage as a federal standard across the many states has a different buying power depending on which state you're in. We've already had that conversation, and Dr. Malveaux raises it quite regularly and quite astutely. And so we have to be mindful. Now that we have this, we now have to figure out what's our next that, what's going to be our strategy to be able to get that, and who do we need to focus on to make sure that we get 50 votes. We need 50 votes wherever they need to come from. And I think as we start to look at what's going on and who's up in 2022, I think the closer we get to Election Day, you're going to find even some Republicans that may be facing some uphill battles being a little more open to what the agendas might be as we move some of these things forward. The challenge is, as Reverend Frank Watkins pointed out in the first hour, is that you still have the filibuster sitting out there. And so I think it is incumbent to try to figure out what procedural changes Senator Schumer is going to be willing to leverage to make sure that the legislative agenda doesn't become stymied as it has been during 4 years of Donald Trump, albeit with a Democrat holding the gavel in the upper chamber.
Reverend Frank Watkins, what do we do now in this moment?
I'm sorry?
What do we do now in this moment? I mean, because people, now it goes back to the House and you're hearing rumble. Do you think it's going to pass in the House?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It'll pass on Wednesday. As I think Reverend Urey said, without a conference, they don't want to get bogged down in a conference situation where then both the Senate and the House have to vote again. They need to get it done by, I believe it's March the 14th when unemployment runs out. So that's the goal, and I think it'll be passed on Tuesday and probably signed Wednesday or Thursday by the president in a big ceremony. What can be done? One thing, Senator Hassan in New Hampshire is up for re-election in 2022, so maybe she needs a little Democratic primary challenge. I also want to clarify for those who were listening in the first hour that Attorney Hoffler was correct. There were 7 Democrats and 1 independent who caucuses with the Democrats. Senator King from Maine is an independent, but he caucuses with Democrats. So it was 7 Democrats and 1 independent that voted against the minimum wage. What to do is, we've been talking about it, remain active on all kinds of fronts, everything from marching in the streets to continuing to register to vote, to engage in voter education, to write letters, to make phone calls, to make visits to the offices of the senators, and anything else that we can think of in the meantime. To remain active, as I think I mentioned last week, there are 2 dimensions of politics. There's electoral politics, where you vote every 4 years for president, every 2 years for members of Congress, other years for mayors and state representatives and county officials and so forth. And then there's interim politics, where we have to engage in the kind of activity that Reverend Urey has been talking about.
Attorney Stephen Hoffler, Reverend.
Yes. The two senators from Delaware voting against Biden's bill, that deserves special attention.
Mm-hmm. Why?
Because you would expect the 2 of them to be leading the way. For them to either embarrass the president or otherwise represent his real feelings, we don't know what that means. It's ugly. It's unusual.
Well, is it?
He came into office talking about he could reach across the aisle. He hasn't been able to reach across the state yet.
Yeah.
Oh, but is it embarrassing or revelatory? I mean, because we have seen corporatist politics played from inside of both tents. And maybe this is also something that is a bit of a revelation for others.
I can imagine 7 or 8 Republicans voting against the Republican leader as they fight to suppress our rights.
I got you. I'm just saying, a lot of Democrats, we do have blue dogs, Reverend. They've been fighting you since the beginning and progressive politics. Before you go, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, your final thoughts.
We have a lot of work ahead of us. Certainly, the passage of this bill, which I think is going to, there's no question the House is going to vote in favor of it. When it goes back to the House, is progress. It is, but we have a lot of work ahead of us. We do, like Reverend Jackson and Frank Watkins and Todd Yeary have said, we do have to pay close attention to what it means when you have 2 senators in the same state, when you're president of the United States, that have not supported something this significant, which is the raising of the minimum wage. We have to really look at that. The president has to look at that, because the president is someone who historically has been able to reach across the aisle. And so it does, like Frank Watkins say, it does kind of beg the question, what does this mean when in your own backyard you don't have the support? Or does it just reveal that maybe, the president wasn't as strong in his support of raising of the minimum wage this round? So we have a lot of work to do, but this is certainly a great start. We can't deny it, even though there are holes in every bill that's passed. But it's a great start towards helping people in this country to live, to just survive, not go 100 miles an hour, but just survive, be able to put food on their table, support their children, support going back to school, address COVID issues. So I think that we're moving in the right direction, but we have so much more work to do, because those 7 Democrats and that 1 independent, we have to keep our eyes on them and look at the jurisdictions that they're from. Arizona right now is facing the greatest attack on voter suppression, I think, of any state in the union, although Georgia is right there fighting to be side by side. So that a senator from Arizona would not vote in favor of raising minimum wage is important. We have to remember, as Reverend Jackson said, Raphael Warnock, in 18 months or less, is going to be up for re-election. He is fighting for the fight of his life. If he does not win and maintain that seat, then it's going to change assuming that everything else is the same, it will change the entire dynamic in the U.S. Senate, and what this administration is able to do in terms of passage of critical legislation that we must have to get this country back on track.
Just a reminder on the Delaware situation. 22.2% of Delaware is African American. There's 131,000 people African Americans who are eligible by citizenship and age and so forth to vote. There are 40,000 that are unregistered. So one dimension would be to register those 40,000 that are unregistered in Delaware. That would send a message.
It would make a difference,
Absolutely.
everybody. It would make a difference. So we want you to continue to call us at 1-866-594-HOPE, 1-866-594-4673. Did you get what you wanted in this American Rescue Plan? What else do you need? What do you need? What do you want to see going forward? We're going to be talking with Reverend Jesse Jackson and this wonderful panel. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, we thank you for being with us, for making space in your busy, busy schedule. Of course, you can catch her on Tuesdays, every Tuesday on WAOK at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. What's the name of your show, C.K.?
Law and Legal with C.K. Hoffler.
Love it, love it, love it, love it.
Thank you, Santita. Thank you, Reverend, and thank you to this wonderful panel. I'll talk to you all again soon.
Blessings to you.
Bye-bye.
Stay right there, everybody. More of Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. I do hope you'll join me on my show on Chicago's Progressive Talk, the largest progressive talk radio station in the country, and AM 950 radio up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and on Facebook Live on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, and on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. We're streaming on all those places and then some right now on Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Back in just a minute.
Okay, this is the last segment, everybody. We've got 2 minutes here. Reverend, can we put him on another channel? Can we put him on another channel? Huh?
Some of the listeners ask questions.
Well, I have a lot of them. I'm just trying to let you all speak
Well,
too.
no, let them talk.
Reverend, they're talking online, so if you just give me a moment, I will pull them up. Because on radio now, you have lots of conversations. People call in. There's someone calling in right now, Jeremy. You have people who call in, and they're also having their own conversation online, and they want those addressed as well. So, can you put Reverend on another channel? Can you bring? Is Reverend's on his own channel? Yeah.
All right, yeah.
So you
What's
can
your name?
mute.
Maybe you call from there.
Okay.
And where you call from there? All right, hold on.
Who is that? They're from Philly. Over there.
Birmingham, Alabama. Daryl. I'll be honest about Daryl.
Dr. Malvo, isn't Trump the first, I don't know whether he's the first president in history or the first one since Herbert Hoover or whatever, who left with fewer jobs than he came in?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And much of it, of course, has to do with COVID, but he moved so slowly on any kind of COVID mitigation that one can say that, you know,
Okay, we're coming up. Everybody, we're coming up. Stand by, please.
Yeah, that was COVID.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Reverend Jackson is joined by attorney Aaron Connolly, Covenant Strategies, political analyst, political strategist, political organizer, Reverend Dr. Todd Geary, Esquire, Rainbow Push, and senior pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church, Dr. Julianne Malveaux, president emeritus of Bennett College for Women, brilliant economist. She has her own radio show on WPFW down in Washington, D.C. But you know what? If you go to WPFW.org, you can hear it all over the country, all over the world, and let everybody know about it. Malveaux, exclamation point, at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which comes on just after my show, the Santita Jackson Show. Hope to be with you tomorrow on Chicago's Progressive Talk and on AM 950 radio and just all over the place. So we've got, of course, Reverend Frank Watkins. You're about to have the 20th anniversary edition of A More Perfect Union, Advancing New American Rights. Very quickly, Reverend Watkins, you co-authored that with Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. What is the book about?
Well, in essence, it talks about moving toward a more perfect union by advancing new American rights, the adding to the Constitution of the right to vote, the right to live with a clean environment, the right to health care, the right to an education of equal high quality, equal rights for women, fair taxation, the right to a job, making livable wages, and to organize into unions. That's the essence of it, that by adding those constitutional rights, we can build a more perfect union. Most people are surprised to learn that the fundamental individual right to vote is not in the Constitution. Only against the 15th, 19th, and 26th Amendments outlaw discrimination in voting, but there is no fundamental right. And after the Heller decision, the ultimate irony is that we do have the fundamental individual right to a gun as interpreted by the Supreme Court in the Constitution, but we don't have the fundamental individual right to vote in the Constitution. And that's in what we like to claim as the world center of democracy.
Let me go to Daryl from Birmingham, Alabama. Daryl, How are you?
Hi, good morning, and thank you for taking my call.
Thank you for calling in.
I just wanted to comment. I was really disappointed that the $15 minimum wage increase was not included in this bill, and I'm really disappointed with Senator Joe Manchin. He's labeled as a Democrat, but sometimes along party lines or ideological, he thinks like a Republican. And to me, if you're going to be a Democrat and really, truly believe that you are a Democrat, you should vote along Democratic lines.
Well, Daryl, what do you think about the 7 Democrats and the 1 independent who also did not want $15 an hour put in?
I'm disappointed in them as well because some of them ran on that issue. So it's a term that I like to use when I'm talking to people here. It's called politics. You can use a different term, to help you get elected. Then once you get elected, you suddenly switch and use the term, well, at this time, we can't really push for that because of this, and that. But you ran on that topic. And there's a number, the workers need that. You can't live and survive on $7 an hour. After they kill you in taxes, what are you left with? People have rent to pay or bills to pay. They have to get back and forth to work, and they have to survive. And you can't survive on $4.35 or $5 an hour after they kill you in taxes.
So, what do you see happening? Do you think this will impact the electoral politics in 2022 and 2024?
Possibly. There'll be folks that basically, I try to register people to vote in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm actually involved in politics. And some of the young people, they feel like the system does nothing for them. They feel that a lot of politicians are liars. And basically, it's going to turn people off where they don't want to vote, they don't want to go to the polls, or they just simply do not care.
A little more difficult to go back to
the topic. You have to keep your word.
It's a little more difficult to go back to college campus now and ask for student involvement when the student loan debt has been passed.
Well, also, Reverend, I would say, Daryl, when you had a lot of energy for Bernie Sanders in the primary season, and you have a lot, and these young people they don't think in a binary way in politics. They really don't look at the Democratic or Republican parties as solutions. They are more independent minded. They really
Correct.
are. Would you not say that as you've been registering people on the ground, Daryl?
I have, and I'll tell you something. Another party that's starting to gain momentum and energy, you better watch out for them, the Libertarian Party.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that like the Libertarian Party. And I was kind of surprised. I was, surprised to kind of hear some of the comments. But in retrospect, they believe that nobody, mainly us, a lot of African Americans, should not go to jail on marijuana. They shouldn't. They want to basically reform the criminal justice system, which I agree with. Nobody should be in jail for that. And just by the way, just real quick, if I may point this out, Reverend Jackson, I met you several years ago in Chicago. I escorted you to your vehicle after you gave a speech to the Spanish community. You probably don't remember, but we chatted as we walked about 6 or 7 blocks to your vehicle, and it was a pleasure to meet you.
God bless you, sir.
Thank you.
God bless you as well. You're an inspiration. And I've always looked up to you, and you've always been a man of integrity. And I'll tell you, words just can't express my feelings towards you, but you're a credit. You're a big, big credit. And through the years that we have you around, we need you, man.
Thank you. Give Reverend Thomas Lewis my regards. Reverend Thomas Lewis at Bethel. Give my regards, all right?
You know Reverend Tommy Lewis at Bethel down there in Birmingham?
I don't. I'm originally from Philadelphia. I'm from the Philadelphia, PA area. Okay. Originally. I'm just getting my feet wet. My feet on the ground here in Birmingham. But it's a good town. And I had 2 weeks ago, I was in Selma, Alabama. I met some very interesting people in Selma who highlighted me on what happened back in 1965.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I met I forgot the gentleman's name. He was 91 years old. He showed me the scar on his forehead that he received from Bloody Sunday when they tried to lead the march on to Montgomery.
Wow.
Mama.
Wow.
Next.
Oh, yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
no, you're right down there. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Oh
Daryl. Thank
yeah.
you for calling in.
Oh yeah.
Blessings to you.
I'm sure. To both of you, and I hope that we're able to chat again, and I could personally meet the both of you one day, and even when I come to Chicago.
Please do. And continue to call in and let everybody down there in Birmingham know about the show, okay? All right, all right, all right. Frank Watkins, you were about to say something?
Yeah, I'm sure Dr. Malvo can expand even further, but this idea of the Libertarian Party, it will have some appeal to young people because it's for social liberalism. So it's not surprising that they, take the position they take about marijuana or choice in terms of women and so forth. But they're economic conservatives, and the focus this morning has been on the need for poor people to have, a job paying livable wages or an income. So the Libertarian Party is not really of benefit to those who are seeking economic justice.
But at the same time, I think the people who are attracted to the Libertarian Party don't like the intrusion of government in social issues. And I don't think that they've thought about the economic impact that government can have either way. What we must say at the same time is that what we've seen the government's intrusion into economic issues, especially from the previous president, has been to redistribute money from the poor to the wealthy. His tax cut really, they keep talking about deficit spending regarding COVID relief. Deficit spending was that tax cut. That was deficit spending. So when folks are looking at the libertarians, they ought to really also look at the role that government plays in economic justice.
Sure, sure. And, and their pushback is look at what the Democrats are not giving us. I'm just giving you what I get on my radio show 5 days a week. And as I talk to young people who really want and need some real answers because they are watching their rights. They've been watching them diminished. Really, we've seen it writ large since 2011. Since 9/11. Since 9/11. There's a lot going on, and people. I think that just given the fluidity that people feel politically, it lets you know that folks are looking for some answers, and it's not personal for them. A modest Bell said, "Why nickel and dime Americans who need this aid? We have to get these people out of office or increase our majority in the House and Senate so that we don't need them." She said, we have to look at things in smaller chunks. If they give us 11, then we have to take 11, and the next time we have to push through 15. Take what we can get until we get what we want. A lot of people have a lot to say. Vicki Wells says the Illinois minimum wage is $11 an hour. Wisconsin minimum wage is $7.25. Wisconsin workers travel to Illinois, taking Illinois jobs, and pay state taxes to Wisconsin, whose GOP legislators work to keep $7.25 an hour because they lose nothing. Yes, we have to be strategic. Reverend Dr. Urey, what do you say to that?
Well, we do have to be strategic as we kind of look at it. There are a number of ways that we have to apply pressure. And I think it's been alluded to that it has to be at all levels of government, not just at the federal level. All of the attention is on Washington, D.C., but there are state legislatures in session right now passing laws that are more likely to have direct impacts on folks where they are than the slow roll of things coming out of D.C. And so to the civics conversation, we've got to be more civically engaged throughout the process, not just on election day. That's the starting point. It's not the end. It's a transition between phases. So as we think about this strategically, there are a couple of ways you get to $15 an hour. You can do it by federal legislation that takes care of all states that are not at that level at the same time. Or you can start advocating in the state legislatures where you live and start putting pressure on state elected officials. There are $2 trillion appropriated every year through state budgets. before you even get to the federal budget. That's an angle that has to be leveraged to get the resources that communities need, in addition to applying pressure at the federal level, because so much of our attention is focused there.
And there are eight states that have a $15 minimum wage.
You know,
He distributes contracts but through regulation. Biggest social distributor is federal government and state government. Let's know that.
Well, let me ask you this. Attorney Aaron Connolly, you have a lot of experience working in Arizona politics. What can you tell us about Senator Sinema?
Well, what I can tell you about my time in Arizona with Senator Sinema, at the time I saw her rise from the Arizona House of Representatives to Congress and then to the Senate. And I actually trained with Senator Sinema in a fellowship program where I can say was a pretty diverse group of folks. There were folks from what you think of more traditional conservative Arizona, folks from the LDS community, the Church of Latter-day Saints, which Senator Sinema was a part of growing up. And there were very progressive folks. And in the Arizona, in her time in the legislature there, she was extremely progressive and has shifted in order to be able to continue to generate the power that she has as a senator and running for statewide office in a state that is 1/3 independent. So when we're talking about libertarians and the influence of this independent-minded voter, Arizona electorally is unique in the sense that there's more independent voters than Democrats or Republicans at this point.
She was extremely progressive?
She was extremely progressive in her time in the state, where the Arizona legislature is very conservative, and you are up against that majority most of the time. It was a very different time. And as she was elected to Congress, we saw a more conservative side, as you are influenced by those folks that are keeping you in office. And she's an excellent fundraiser. She has built a very strong coalition in Arizona of those independents, some Republicans, business-minded folks. And those are the folks that continue to support her and support her campaign. And she, from Arizona, in a political standpoint, there really would be no one set to challenge her in the Senate. From the left, Arizona now has 2 Democratic senators, Mark Kelly and Kyrsten Sinema, and it was a hard fight to win those seats in Arizona. So the likelihood that she would get a left flank that would be able to take on her fundraising prowess would be, I would say, slim to none. So again, I think it's important for us to look at where the money is coming from the folks that are supporting Senator Manchin, Senator Sinema, and those who are really benefiting from these votes. So I'm disappointed to see her not follow through on something that I think, we did see her earlier in her career advocate for very strongly, things like a living wage. She did a lot of work in the legal rights of immigrants coming to the United States, and was very progressive. So it is disappointing to see this evolution that's impacting the lives of working families in this way.
How much?
What was with her showboating yesterday?
Well, I think it's interesting to see. We read these articles about winners and losers and who is wielding power at the highest levels of government. And I think that for many that are taking the victory laps on the Sunday talk shows, there's going to be a part of that, right? And I think we need to pay attention to who is taking those victory laps and who is calling the shots behind closed doors. So I hope that the rest of our senators and representatives, can stand up to any showboating that's not in the best interest of the American public.
You know, we're going to get some closing thoughts when we get on the other side of the break. We do need you to support PUSH. Please go to rainbowpush.org, and be a part of the movement. We need you to join the organization. It's just $35 a year, much less for students. Need you to get involved. We are giving away food. We are giving assistance. We're giving Pampers away. We're giving assistance to those who are most in need, and so many people are. They always are, but this time it's just been heightened. And so we need your help. We need your help. We need your support. We need your support. We need you to be involved. You can also call us at 773-FREEDOM, 773-FREEDOM. Need you to join Dr. Julianne Malveaux on her show on WPFW tomorrow morning. She is going to be saluting women. It's International Women's Day. It's International Women's History Month. And so we want to hear what she and Jeanette, excuse me, not Jeanette, but Janice Mathis, Attorney Janice Mathis, an alum, former vice president of PUSH, who is now the head of the National Council of Negro Women. They're going to be talking about issues particular to us, and we're so grateful for this brilliant economist. Of course, the 20th anniversary edition of A More Perfect Union, Advancing New American Rights, is about to come out. It's a book that was co-authored by Reverend Frank Watkins and Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. Cannot wait to talk with them about that as we move into this anniversary season. And of course, brilliant pastor theologian, Reverend Dr. Todd Urey, Esquire, Vice President of Rainbow Push, and a senior pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church. Always a pleasure being with you. Going to get some closing thoughts from you too, Attorney Aaron Connolly, giving us the inside scoop on Arizona. Boy, there's a story everywhere all the time, isn't there? Closing thoughts on Keep Hope Alive. And I hope you'll join me on my show, on the Santita Jackson Show, every day of the week on the largest progressive talk radio station here in Chicago. Chicago's Progressive Talk took over the airwaves for Air America, AM 950 Radio, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and streaming on the Santita Jackson page, Santita Jackson and Friends, and on the Santita Jackson Show page on YouTube. Whew, I said it. So much more of Keep Hope Alive in just a few minutes.
Hey, Bruce. He said he was right there. Reverend? Hey, Reverend. Did you want us to call you back on this number, on Bruce's number? Okay. All right, I'll call you right back then. Let me call from another phone. All right, okay. I'll call you on your phone.
Right away.
All right.
Okay, you guys, you all can talk amongst yourselves. Julianne, why don't you tell people who are on Facebook right now and these other channels what you're going to be talking about in the morning in about 30 seconds.
We're going to talk about women's organizations and their importance.
Okay. And you'll be speaking with whom?
With Attorney Janice Mathis, who was formerly VP of Rainbow and is now the Executive Director of the National Council of Negro Women, which is an organization of organizations, which means there are about 30 organizations that are organizationally part of NCNW.
Wonderful, 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 wonderful. It ought to be a great show. And how can people catch you?
WPFW.org or 89.3 FM.
Okay, fantastic. So everybody, please join Dr. Malvo. Yeah?
I call him, he's not picking up.
Okay.
I just call Bruce again.
Just call Bruce. Just have him put him on the phone. And I think we're gonna have like 30 seconds apiece. When you all hear me say something, that means I need to get out. I'm looking at this clock because we have an automatic shut off. Okay. All right. Did his phone just? Well, let me just.
And it rings.
Okay.
And then it goes to voicemail.
Okay.
Oh, it's tight. 20-second closing thoughts. Reverend Frank Watkins.
Well, in Arizona, 44% of the population is comprised of African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians, and 496,000 of them are unregistered. That would send a signal to Senator Sinema if those persons were to be registered and educated.
Wow. Attorney Aaron Connolly.
Well, I absolutely agree. And I'm proud to support those local organizations like Lucha in Arizona that are doing that bold electoral work on the local level.
Okay.
So let's keep hope alive there and keep fighting for those organizations and those issues on the ground. You're absolutely right.
Reverend Uri, 20 seconds.
Time is of the essence. There's still work to be done, so you can write, call, text, tweet your member of Congress. In the meantime, work your fingers, rest your feet. We're getting ready to take it to the streets because we've got work to do.
Dr. Julianne Malvo.
Listen to me tomorrow at WPFW FM, 89.3 FM in Washington, D.C. to hear me talk this Women's History Month and International Women's Day about the importance of women's organizations. Also,
yes.
As everyone has said, we've got to keep working, folks. We've got a lot to do.
Reverend Jackson, the final 20 seconds belong to you.
We will focus on about 10 states where our unregistered voters determine the election. We must register to vote, and we win.
Amen, everybody. And until next week and throughout the week and every day, Reverend Jackson, what do you want people to do?
Keep them alive.
Amen. God bless you, everybody. See you next Sunday and throughout the week on everybody's radio shows. God bless.
Thank you for listening to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. For more information on upcoming shows and guests, please visit our website at www.
Sending you all much love. Thank you for being with us this morning.